we got a lot of interesting Nintendo Switch 2 news to talk about, like a Donkey Kong Bonanza demo, Mario Kart World updates somehow making the game worse, and also used Nintendo Switch 2s could be bricked. Be warned. Alright, let's get straight into it. Okay, so in select retailers, you might notice that there is a Nintendo Switch 2, and on that Nintendo Switch 2, sometimes there will be Donkey Kong Bonanza, and you can play Donkey Kong Bonanza. There is a demo that unlocks the Donkey Kong mines and also the first area, which is kind of like the beach area, which is really interesting. So this is usually would be inside of a Target or Walmart, but you might be able to see it in a Best Buy or elsewhere in wherever you live. So just keep an eye out on that, and maybe you'll see a Donkey Kong Bonanza demo so you can play it early. Anyways, that's pretty interesting. Okay, so Mario Kart World. Now, there's been an update that has rolled around in the game, and let me tell you, this update kind of sucks and has turned a lot of players away from the game. And it kind of sucks. Now, before you were able to go onto an online race and you were able to click random, and this random would give you a totally completely random race that would allow you to do 3 laps around without, doing the intermission tracks. But now Nintendo decided to plop in this update and make it so intermission tracks, you have to do it. And the random, it's only the random 3 that you have to pick from. So overall, it's not really random at this point. So that right there kind of sucks. And it makes you wonder, why in the world is there not 3 laps? You have to do the intermission tracks, and Nintendo's like, sticking this right to you and saying, hey, you're doing the intermission tracks or you're not playing at all. So overall, that kind of sucks right there. We got a new game price for Dragon Drive. So it turns out the game is $20, which is really cool, because Nintendo is showing that, hey, if this game is $20, not all their game has to be $70, $80, $90 just to play the game. They're showing that, this game, we feel that it's just a fun game that you'll play maybe once or twice and move on, or maybe you'll play it multiple times, but it didn't take that much money to develop, and it's not a very long game. It's just like a little spin-off, a little repetitive game. So yeah, $20, what a good price, Nintendo. Really proud of that. All right, Nintendo is not handing out development kits. Now, this is pretty bad thing for indie developers. Now, for the known brands like the people who are developing Hades 2 and also Silk Song, they're gonna have development kits. But for the lesser known brands, Nintendo's not handing it out for some reason. Maybe it's because some of these brands potentially gave away the Nintendo Switch 1's development kit to other people so they can get their hands on it. Who knows? Their reasoning might not make sense, but it kind of ruins the creativity, and also the fact that the game will be delayed. On the Nintendo Switch, there was a lot of third-party indie games like on the launch day of Nintendo Switch 1. Like, they just kept flying off the shelf, and now you take a look at this and you're like, okay, so if there's no development kit, they can't really test the game. They don't know if it runs perfectly fine on Nintendo Switch 2. They'll have to test it on Switch 1. They'll be very limited on what kind of power you can see on this system. And overall, it's going to turn a lot of players away, or a lot of developers away from the Nintendo Switch 2, and maybe move on Xbox or Sony. Who knows? But that right there is kind of sad. All right. So now, you shouldn't buy a used Nintendo Switch 2. Now, hear me out. You might say, why? If it comes to the point, it's going to be a great deal or something. Just don't do it, trust me. Because of the fact that some of the Nintendo Switch 2s are probably bricked. Now, there was a shipment of Nintendo Switch 2s that, went out on a truck, and somehow this truck got pulled over and robbed. At least 2,000 consoles got stolen out of the back of the truck. Now, luckily, Nintendo was able to flag down and see where these systems are, and Nintendo themselves can just brick the system because of the fact that the company who owns the truck, they see the serial numbers and they send to Nintendo, okay, brick. So now maybe these sellers are trying to just get all the Switch 2s and sell them, even though they're bricked. Once you get your hands on them, well, there's nothing you can really do with it. So only buy a used system from a trusted retailer, maybe Best Buy, maybe EB Games or GameStop or whatever, maybe even a person that you actually know. But besides that, I feel like it's a little bit of a risky situation here on the Switch 2 potentially being bricked. And it doesn't even have to be from the back of the truck. They could just be bricked because of people sliding in one of those game keycard shark thingies or whatever. And they could be bricked. So just keep an eye on that. Just make sure that you're buying a system from someone who you actually know, you actually trust. Yeah. All right. So the next thing we got to talk about here is the Tears of the Kingdom auto build thing. It's interesting. So the Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom Switch 2 edition has a thing that you can use Zelda notes and you can use auto builds. Nintendo has actually been sending out auto builds for every single day. About they send out different auto builds. There's one that you can put in the back of the horse and gallop away with like 4 shooters and laser things. So I guess it's just to help players out that don't really understand or don't feel like building their own things inside of Tears of the Kingdom. So overall, that right there is really cool. Okay, so the next Animal Crossing game. Now, this is pretty interesting. So the next Animal Crossing game is supposed to be taking place in a city. Now, Nintendo wants to step away from the island theme and make it so, hey, it's going to be in a city. So you're going to be operating in a city. You're going to be making your own city inside of this next Animal Crossing game. Now, of course, this is just leaks and speculations, but it seems to be coming from a whole bunch of different leakers from the past that have got a couple things, probably even more things right about some leaks of games and stuff like that. So anyways, that right there is pretty cool. Now, that's pretty much about it of news that we have to share with you. But yeah, thanks for tuning in. I hope that you enjoyed. I hope that this helps a lot. And I like to keep it nice, short and simple, short and sweet for you. Anyways, thanks a lot. That being said, see you in the next one. Have a fantastic day. Consider hit the like button. Maybe subscribing if you're new. Yeah. Thank you so much.